This short little introduction to a film that I want you to see is just to help you look for specific things when you're watching the film. The film is called The Discoveries of Infancy, Cognitive Development and Learning, and it's put out by the West Ed Corporation. I typically have shown this one in my face-to-face classes, and somebody posted it on YouTube, so that's been very helpful to find it on YouTube. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some little specific pictures from the video and talk a little bit about what I want you to be looking for as you're watching the video. Right off the bat, here is a picture of the discovery of fire. The video was made a while ago, so you can tell that it looks a little dated, not quite this dated, but the information is still appropriate. So I do show it with regards to cognitive development. And as you're watching it, I want you to look at the different developmental domains, the physical development, cognitive, and psychosocial or social and emotional development of these young children. When you start the video, you will see that it talks about the discoveries that have happened over history, and then it moves into looking at infants and toddlers. Now, although this film is about cognitive development, what I want you to be using it for is to look at all domains of development, which is physical, cognitive, and psychosocial or social and emotional. This will help to give you information about what I'm looking for when you do your observation. Now, with physical development, we often talk about fine motor and gross motor. Fine motor has to do with movement of the hands. Even young infants use their hands and their fingers. Initially, a newborn, when they wrap their fingers around an object, they're actually unable to release that object. So it actually is recommended that you don't put an object in a very young infant's hands because they can't release it. But eventually they begin to coordinate their fingers, they're able to hit objects, and eventually they're able to reach and grasp. When they develop the pincher grasp, which is putting the forefinger and the thumb together, is around the time when children start to crawl. Now, actually, that's an interesting developmental stage, putting the forefinger and the thumb together to pinch up a small object. It's really quite a big accomplishment, and we really don't ever give it much credence or much attention. But as it happens around the time when children are beginning to crawl, that means that as they're crawling around on the floor, and they have their little pincher grasp, they're able to pick up all kinds of small objects, and of course the place where they put it is in their mouth. Gross body movements have to do with big movements, whether it's rolling over, getting into a seated position, crawling, walking, running, climbing. And as you'll see with this little boy in this picture, is that he is sitting upright. He's able to manipulate small blocks, and he's got quite a bit of control over his body, and we can tell that probably even without watching that he's walking and he's moving around quite well. Now, this little boy who's picking up this plastic bucket and putting it over his head, this actually uses all three of the developmental domains, and the little video clip is very fast. But what happens is that he grasps the bucket by the handle, so he's using his fine motor. He's actually lifting it up and putting it on his head. That takes a fair amount of control. He's experimenting, which he's looking through the plastic and also pulling it up at one point and looking through without it, and then afterwards taking it off of his head and having kind of a look of joy or surprise. So right off the bat, right within that 5-second, 10-second little video clip, you have all of the different developmental domains all happening at once. So do look at that when you're watching the video. Now, aside from looking at the cognitive domains, I always like to stop the film at this scene in this children's center and talk about the structure and what we see. First off, as you watch the children in this video clip or the videotape, you'll notice that the children are very focused in on their play. So that sends the message to me that these children feel comfortable in this environment, they feel comfortable with this caregiver, and they're able to then, because they feel secure, they're able to focus in on their play and on the play items. In this scene, you see that these 3 young toddlers are engaged with their caregiver, that there isn't an overabundance of toys. The toys are displayed on a shelf so the children can see which toys they want to play with and select, so it's not too crowded, not too overwhelming. Another thing you notice is that pictures are down low for the children because children are short, and so they need to have pictures and things that they might be interested in looking at down at their level. Another thing is this carpet is a very neutral color. There's not a lot of colors in the carpet. When children are very close to the floor, it's nice for them to have a neutral colored carpet and one that is not very thick. In other words, where items are not going to get stuck in it and where it's easy to vacuum and keep clean. But it's easier for children to see objects and to be on an environment that's not too overstimulating. So also, as you think about the different developmental domains, the gross motor activity, this one child is crawling, some of the children will be walking, some of them will be able to lift items, do different things. Look at how they're using their bodies and what they're able to do as far as gross motor skills. Fine motor, they'll have varying degrees of how they're able to reach and use objects. So do pay attention and notice how they're using their hands. Cognitively, this video is all about cognitive development, or a good introduction for infants and toddlers, and it talks about different things that children are using in their environment to make their discoveries. Remember, babies and children learn holistically through what they see, touch, taste, smell, hear. They integrate all of their senses into their environment and into their understanding of things. Then also in this video, you will notice interactions with caregivers, that the social and the emotional components are really important to feel safe in one's environment, particularly when you're a very young child. When you feel safe and secure, you're able to explore and engage with your environment and learn. So I'll be stopping the film a few more times just to point out a few things I want you to look for. Now, shortly into the video, you're going to see this little girl playing with these rings in this little pose. This is a toy that's been around forever. And one reason I like to stop here is just that when you're watching it is to use it as an example for allowing a child to explore with toys and objects the way that they are drawn to. In other words, when you see her playing with this object, it's important that we don't rush in and go, no, no, no. The blue one goes on the bottom, then the red one, then the green one, and then the yellow one, or whatever. She's learning something by exploring with her toys the way she's doing it. As you get into the video, it talks about how children engage with objects in their world in order to put together what is referred to as schemes or mental templates, that they bang, they mouth, they throw objects. We often see this as maybe inconvenient, especially when a child is emptying books off of a bookshelf. But when you think about learning how to use your body, how to explore, it's pretty powerful to be able to take objects off of a bookshelf. And so therefore, it's important to set up environments where children can use their bodies and explore. You want to have environments where children are spending most of their time, that where they can have free reign of toys and objects. And certainly if you have a bookshelf in the playroom, you want to have it mounted to the wall so that it doesn't fall on a child. Also, children love to fill and dump, explore space, all of that. So in this, when you see this little picture of Eli He's very young, and you see how he's probably not quite crawling yet, but he's getting ready to learn how to move his body more. But he's very interested. He's very focused in on his toys. And there's a lot of learning and a lot of concentration going on with him. So coming up to this scene with this little girl and the toys that go down inside this funnel, the child previously was playing with some things that would be considered choking hazards. It's interesting to give children small things to interact with, the tape or the cotton balls, but you do want to do one-on-one supervision. And again, with this toy, you see that the younger child knows that the little objects go in the cylinders. She quite hasn't figured out yet how to get them in, but this little girl also just is learning to figure out how to get them out. So seeing if children can figure out the discoveries on their own is an interesting thing to do and is helpful for them. When you see this segment of the little baton twirler toy, the teacher gets it to go around by hitting it on the head real quickly, and this little boy notices that and later on imitates her behavior. So again, it just shows how quickly children observe and learn and try different things. Jumping ahead in this video, you will come to a segment that's called the body as a tool. And here, this child has a cry, and to me, it sounds like that the child's either tired or is getting sleepy. And so the child is doing things to self-soothe. She's putting her hands in her mouth, she's kind of rolling over, and then when the caregiver comes and picks her up, she begins to calm down. So you get a sense that she knows this caregiver, and therefore she's had the experience that this caregiver has comforted her in the past, and so then she's able to start relaxing in the arms of this caregiver. So when you get to this point in the video, do take a look at that. Now this clip is part of the object permanence sequence, and here is a picture of Ya Ting saying goodbye to her mother. Why I like to stop this film and talk about this is because the caregiver is not hiding the fact that mom is leaving. Ya Ting's very unhappy about this, but they go up to the door and they say goodbye. And this is really important for the attachment relationship, for children to realize that their parent will not leave for the day unless they say goodbye. So even though sometimes people do not like to hear their child crying and they like to sneak out when the child's distracted, it's always recommended that you say goodbye to your child. And even if they cry a little bit, it's important that they know that you're leaving. And the reason also that children cry when their parents leave is because they are attached. Once again, throughout this video, and I know I'm jumping around from, just different places to different places, but again, to recognize that a lot of these environments they have very small groups. Obviously, this has been set up for a videotape, so there's a lot of one-on-one, but the environment is quiet, and also the caregivers are not moving real fast, and they're moving at the child's pace. So keeping a lot of distractions down is important. And when you're working with young children or with adults, to make sure you've turned your cell phone off. So as we get to the end of this little video about watching a video, Gary Thompson makes a nice discussion about how all the domains are interrelated and interconnected, and that babies experience the world in an integrated way. Lastly, just take a look at this nice connection here between this infant and this caregiver, and the nice light touch that's all she's needing for a little bit of security. All right, so I hope that this is helpful in understanding development and the developmental domains as you do your observations.